Hello everyone and welcome to Whisky Wednesday. Today we're going to talk about a wonderful expression of Bunnahabhain with a very unfortunate price tag. And it's always sad when the price kind of diminishes the product. This is the Bunnahabhain limited release. It's the 2008 Manzanilla cask matured. This is, in their own words, the magnificent 11-year-old malt enjoys rich flavours of nuts, fruits and toffee with a salted caramel finish. This is natural colour, this is non-chill filtered, this is 52.3%. Doesn't state cask strength, but I would assume it probably is quite close to. Batch strength for sure. And it's been matured, as the label states, in Manzanilla sherry. For those of you that aren't too versed in sherry, it's something I became quite obsessed with numerous years ago. Started researching all the varieties of it. It's a drier sherry. It receives less oxidization than something like Oloroso or Pedro Jimenez. And it's in this, so Fino is the driest, and then I can't remember the order, which shows up how much research I did. But I think it's Fino, Amontillado, Manzanilla, Oloroso, PX. There are some other ones in between, but I think that's the order. So it's just the one below Oloroso. Not that sweet, but as you can see from the colour it's imparted to the whiskey, it's this beautiful kind of golden syrup toffee colour. This was a gift, essentially. A customer bought two, opened one of them, we tried it, and then he gave us the rest of the bottle. So thank you very much, that customer. You know who you are. Excuse me. We did have a very similar conversation with this customer as to what we will have at the end, but this gentleman is just a die-hard Bunnahabhain fan, and he will buy whatever he wants to buy, which is all you can say about Bunnahabhain fans. In the recent history of Bunnahabhain, the master distiller Kirsty, she moved to Glenmoray, and now she's moved to Halewood Spirits. Most notably, they've got one of the newer Welsh distilleries going on, which is called Aberfalls, Aberfalls. And peak Bunnahabhain, when everyone was talking about it, it was Kirsty's brainchild, or all the beautiful wine casks, or the sherry, the natural presentation. I'm not sure if she was master distiller at Deanston and Tobermory and Ledaig too. I think she did put Black Bottle together when she was there, but she moved to Glenmoray. She's now moved again. I'm honestly unsure who the master distiller is at the minute in Bunnahabhain. The distillery manager's signature is on the front of it, but I don't know if he put it together. It's Andrew Brown. But yes, I digress. Let's smell, let's taste. I have tasted this previously, and it is quite an amazing taste and smell sensation. But let's walk you through it. I'm assuming this cereal is available on both sides of the Atlantic, but this in particular just reminds me of like really boozy, brown sugar driven, like crunchy nut cornflakes. I know the bottle says like toffee and nuts and honey, but in all honesty, Manzanilla is such a rarely used sherry type. I can only think we have reviewed in the past an 18-year-old Bowmore Manzanilla. It was years ago when we used to shoot in the whiskey jar, and that was incredible stuff. It was really good. It was cask strength, the sherry finish, beautiful. I can't really think. Springbank have used it, I think, in the past, but you really don't see it at all. Even in like the Diageo Classic Malts Distillers Edition versions, Manzanilla doesn't make an appearance. Fino does in the Oban, Amontillado's on the Glenkinchie, different types of Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez for Lagavulin and Talisker. That's Amoroso. But yeah, Manzanilla you just don't see, and it's turned this Bunnahabhain into peanuts, hazelnut, loads of toffee, like Manuka honey, that really kind of expensive New Zealand honey. Salted caramel, absolutely. It is laden with that on the nose. And then there's almost like a mocha, like dark espresso. I've already said brown sugar, but it is very much breakfast, but with 52.3% alcohol, which some would argue is either the start to a wonderful day or a really bad one. But with this particular bottle, I would argue it's quite a good one. I think figs get mentioned somewhere and dates. I think that's on the bottle. I'm not sure if I get figs and dates. There's not too much fruit going on, but I can't really remember the last time I tried a fig. It's quite honeyed and quite like sticky, so like a date, I could understand thinking that. But if you like salted caramel and peanuts and stuff, and like peanut brittle and things like that, this is, or toffee sauce, this is very much up your street. But let's taste it. Okay, so the fruit comes in on the palate. I will admit that I've tried this 3 times since it's been open, and each time it's tasted quite different. So this leads with this really unusual white grape note. White grape and Japanese pear. I don't know if any of you have ever seen those. They're white pears, and they're like super refreshing. Like, if I could like turn that stuff into an everyday drink, I would. So this really leads the way with these quite bright, not citrus, but tangy fruit flavour, which is a massive diversion from where it has gone in the past. Followed up behind that, cappuccino, espresso, like foamy, milky coffee, salted caramel, toffee, more peanut. I've said maple syrup a lot in like a feta cairn video, but there is a mapley thing. And it reminds me of my only holiday in Canada. Canada, you're great. I will come back at some point. And then the finish. It's only an 11-year-old product, but the ABV and the cask influence are doing some wonderful stuff, like truly wonderful stuff. The finish I would describe as, it's on the thinner side. It's not necessarily a negative, because at the minute it's so rich and so like chewable, and you literally want to sink your teeth into the stuff. So the finish I find a little thinner. It's almost like a salted caramel sauce. So not the biggest texture necessarily, but quite a lot of flavour. It's got that dry sweetness of a peanut. There's the bitterness of like a walnut. And that coffee thing. I'm not like a coffee nerd. I only buy like one type of coffee to like drink every now and then. But I have recently got into espresso, much to my girlfriend's annoyance, and I take my espresso with just like 1 cube of brown sugar, if I'm being a bit pretentious, and it does taste like that. Sharp, bitter, but like underlying sweetness. Yeah, foamy, toffee, milky, peanutty coffee, which I don't think I've ever described any whiskey as before or in the past. The downside with it is the price. Depending on who you buy this from, it is anywhere between 120 to 150 pounds. No, sorry, 120. I've seen it as high as 165, which is a huge scope. And even at the base level of 120, I still think that's a bit too expensive for what this is. Yes, it's cask strength. It's an 11-year-old. No idea how many casks went into it. So there could be quite a lot of bottles. Yes, it smells incredible. Yes, it tastes incredible. Yes, the finish is very interesting and very different to a normal Bunnahabhain. But I think that price point, and it's happened with a few of their new releases. They've done a red wine cask release. They've got a 22-year-old peated Pedro Jimenez release. It's called the Moyne PX. And I've honestly stood there and salivated in front of that bottle because I want it. But I'm not particularly willing to pay £350 for a 22-year-old because that's quite expensive. And there's been a lot of chat with the online Scotch Whisky Awards. There was a lot of chat on the launch of that about Bunnahabhain and how they're maybe releasing 40% like chill filtered bottles. In the part of the industry I work in, which is like whiskey specialists, I've never seen those bottles, so that's not really impacted my view of Bunnahabhain. But their pricing has gone up quite a bit. The 12 and the 18 have stayed relatively normal, pretty stable. 25 has been kind of climbing. They've released a lot of old stock, like a 46-year-old. I'm pretty sure they've released a 50-year-old, like a 52-year-old for mental money, but those whiskies always are crazy, no matter which brand you shop with. But I feel if this came out at like £80, I'd have bought it straight away, without any doubt. Because if you think of cask strength whiskies, which are roughly this age, Laphroaig cask strength, always incredible, and you can pick it up for about £75. Glenallachie 10-year-old cask strength, I've never been quick enough to get hold of a bottle of that, because we've never reviewed it because it always sells out. Who else does really cool cask strength whiskey? Obviously there's Glenfarclas 105 at like £60. Aberlour Booner is now quite expensive and I was never really a fan of it anyway. Arran Quarter Cask, Arran Sherry Cask, incredible whiskies for like below 60 quid. And then this, I know it uses an unusual sherry type, but I just feel it's not worth 2 bottles of Arran Sherry Cask or 3 bottles of Arran Quarter Cask. I just don't feel it's worth it. It's going to score an 8.5, which is still quite a respectable score, don't get me wrong. If you give any whiskey an 8.5 or an 85 out of 100, or like a B grade, that's pretty solid. You can't really go too wrong with that. The liquid is exceptional. The price isn't. But yeah, an 8.5 is what I'm going to give it. I don't think Bunnahabhain will watch this video, but what's going on with your pricing, guys? It's kind of creeping up. Deanston as well. Tobermory and Leipzig too, for the special releases anyway. And like those special releases used to be such an exciting point for me, because we all remember that Leipzig 19 Pedro Jimenez, which I just lost out to Whiskey of the Year to the Catalan Virgin Oak, which I got a lot of flack for, but I stand by what I said. I've still got that Leipzig at home. I really need to open it at some point. But that was like I think it was 135 or 140 for a 19-year-old PX finished peated Leipzig. I was like, yeah, I'll take that every day, fine. The same price for an 11-year-old Bunnahabhain, no peat in it, but yeah, I just feel like it's a bit of a letdown. I've had a few disagreements with like friends and staff on this, but still a respectable score. Just making you aware that Bunnahabhain's prices are kind of doing that. But yeah, that was a bit of a rant. I do apologise. Thank you all for watching. This is the Bunnahabhain Manzanilla. It's an 8.5 out of 10. Just keep an eye on those prices. That's all I'm saying. And I'll see you all next week. Cheers.